After my rebirth, I suddenly no longer wished to marry Xiao Jingcheng. I feigned illness to avoid accompanying my elder sister to the palace, thus evading the empress's arranged marriage. I personally burned every painting I had created for him over the years. In my previous life, I married Xiao Jingcheng as his princess consort, enduring his most destitute decade by his side. Yet I died of illness the day before his ascension. He posthumously honored me as the virtuous and cultured empress, constructing a grand imperial mausoleum for me. The world praised his deep devotion, but only I knew through those 10 years. I never truly occupied his heart. When I awoke, my elder sister was asking if I wished to accompany her to the palace. Enter the palace. I lifted my gaze toward the doorway, feeling dazed as memories flooded back like a tidal wave. It felt as though I had returned to the Prince Yu's residence. Once more, I saw myself beneath the begonia tree, counting chess pieces, consumed by endless solitude. My elder sister urged me again. I pulled my thoughts back and smiled at her. No, thank you. I'm not fully recovered yet. I'd rather not be troubled. You truly won't go. My elder sister seemed surprised. Didn't you wish to see His Highness the Prince of Yu? Today is the perfect opportunity. I lowered my eyes. His Highness the Prince of Yu is such a distinguished figure. Even if I entered the palace, I'd only catch a distant glimpse. What meaning would that hold? My sister hesitated for a moment before nodding. Very well. She rose to leave, then paused and turned back. Su Yi, rest well, not look at yourself ever since you fell ill. You've grown so old and weary. It's not like you at all. Is that so? But after a decade of toil, ending in grave illness and death, how could I not look old and weary? Still, unwilling to trouble my elder sister, I forced a smile. Once I'm well again, you'll find me bothersome once more. Bothersome I may find you, but it's far better than looking like a little old woman now. My sister gave a mischievous chuckle and departed with light steps. Silence settled back into the room. I lowered my gaze, studying my own young, delicate hands. 10 years in the prince's mansion. Xiao Jingcheng endured the late emperor's suspicion and relentless suppression, living a bitter existence. I stayed by his side, enduring hardships without complaint. To save expenses, I took on many menial tasks, my hands growing coarse like a peasant woman's. I never felt it was hardship. I only hoped that one day he might turn and look at me. But he never did. His heart held only the throne, not me. I once comforted myself. What did it matter if my husband showed me no affection? If he triumphed in the future, I would be empress, and life would surely be good. Alas, misfortune befell me. I died the day before his coronation. A lifetime of toil ended in vain. Now, having been reborn, I shall treat myself better. I rose from bed and retrieved several portraits I had painted of Xiao Jingcheng from the bottom of the wardrobe and burned them all. Not long after my elder sister left, fireworks lit up the palace sky. I leaned against the doorway, gazing at them from afar. The night wind was fierce. Mingxi draped a cloak over me and urged, "Miss, please return to your room to rest. Your body hasn't fully recovered. How can you endure such a wind?" I withdrew my gaze, nodded, and retreated inside. Mingxi helped me inside and saw the charred remains of the paintings in the brazier. She rushed over in alarm. "Oh my, these are your paintings, miss. Why did you burn them?" She reached into the flames to retrieve them. I grabbed her hand. "Mingxi, I burned them. Don't try to save them." "What?" Mingxi's eyes reddened. "Why, miss, several of these took you so much effort to paint. Why burn them? Didn't you say that if you ever stood before His Highness Prince Yu, you'd give them all to him?" 7 years ago, Xiao Jingcheng had saved me. Because of that rescue, I'd fallen for him and secretly painted many portraits of him. I thought that if I ever stood before him, I would present these paintings to him. But later, I married into the Prince Yu's household and never gave him the paintings. Xiao Jingcheng had no recollection of saving me. All my youthful gratitude and affection were nothing but self-delusion. That day will never come. Xiao Jingcheng and I will never meet again in this lifetime. Fireworks lit up the palace banquet for the second time. The empress must have already arranged a marriage for Xiao Jingcheng, right? This time I won't be there. I wonder which young lady will take my place. The palace banquet. Xiao Jingcheng spent half his life striving relentlessly, scheming and plotting, until he finally climbed to the pinnacle he desired above all men, alone at the summit. Yet on the day he ascended the throne, he felt no joy. Step by step, he had walked toward the imperial throne, with no one by his side. All celebrated his ascension, unaware of the loneliness within. He glanced toward the direction of the royal residence, thinking faintly, if only she were still here. Truthfully, even when she was alive, Xiao Jingcheng never considered her important. She was merely the daughter of a minor official, chosen at random by the empress to humiliate him. He neither blamed her nor loved her. During his decade in the prince's residence, consumed by his quest for the throne, he paid her little attention. He only remembered her as someone who quietly handled every task for him, never asking for anything in return. By the time he finally emerged victorious and could ask her what she desired, she was gone, light as a feather, as if she had never been there at all. After his coronation, he posthumously honored her as empress and built her a grand imperial mausoleum. He didn't know why he did it, perhaps out of gratitude for her decade of companionship. Yet even years later, she still haunted his thoughts. The figure that had been blurred in life became crystal clear in death. He owed her far too much. Your Highness, perhaps you should decline. This palace banquet is clearly aimed at you. If you attend, who knows how the Crown Prince's faction will target you. His retainers protested vehemently, urging Xiao Jingcheng not to enter the palace. Having lived this life before, he knew exactly what awaited him there. Yet after a moment's silence, he shook his head. No doubt I must go, because she would be there too. Tonight, she would be betrothed to him. In his previous life, he had viewed this as a humiliation. This time, however, he welcomed the betrothal willingly. He owed her a decade of debt. This time, he intended to treat her better. As he rode into the palace and took his seat, it came as no surprise to hear the Crown Prince's confidant fan the flames. Your Highness, Prince Yu, has arrived remarkably early. The Emperor will surely be deeply moved. The man was mocking him for being motivated solely by self-interest. Xiao Jingcheng paid it no mind, merely turning with a smile to address him. Minister Meng looks exceptionally ready today. I presume you've been thoroughly indulging in wine at your mistress's quarters. Menki's face drained of color. He had kept a mistress hidden from his wife. Keeping a mistress was one thing, but this woman was the daughter of a convicted minister's scandalous affair. That must remain concealed. He had guarded this secret meticulously. How could Xiao Jingcheng possibly know? What else did he know? Your Highness, you must be mistaken. Your humble servant has never kept a mistress. Menki's heart pounded like a drum. Daring not to think further, he lowered his gaze and hastily drained a cup of wine, terrified to meet Xiao Jingcheng's eyes again. Xiao Jingcheng had no intention of pressing the matter further. Settling accounts could wait for another day. He lifted his eyes, scanning the last few rows where the minister's family sat. If memory served, Zhang Suyi should be seated at the very back. Yet, after searching for a long while, she was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps it was still too early, and she hadn't arrived yet. He swirled his wine cup, waiting patiently. A burst of fireworks erupted as the Emperor and Empress made their entrance. Xiao Jingcheng rose to pay his respects. The Emperor, who had never favored him, merely nodded without further exchange. The Empress, however, smiled warmly, her words laced with subtle barbs. Xiao Jingcheng responded calmly and measuredly. Finding no fault to seize upon, the Empress sat down with a dark expression. Xiao Jingcheng also took his seat, unable to resist glancing toward the back once more. Still, she was nowhere to be seen. Was she too far away to see clearly? He calmed himself. No need to rush. When the marriage decree was announced, he would see her then. As he thought this, the hour of his past life arrived once more. The crown prince mentioned the newly built lotus pond in the palace, smiling as he said, "I recall, Your Royal Highness, that you are the finest swimmer. 7 years ago, you even jumped into the water to save a young girl. Wasn't she the daughter of Minister Zhang, the junior minister of the Bureau of Ceremonies?" Xiao Jingcheng froze. Back in the prince's residence, Zhang Suyi had once asked him if he remembered saving someone from drowning. His mind had been elsewhere then, and he hadn't heard her clearly. He'd merely shaken his head, saying he didn't recall, and hurried away. Looking back now, she must have had so much she wanted to tell him then. "I believe so." The Empress glanced behind her. "Has the daughter of Minister Zhang arrived? Quickly summon her forward, let me see her." As the eunuch went to fetch her, Xiao Jingcheng's heart tightened. He found himself unexpectedly nervous. He resolved that after the marriage decree, he would listen to her words attentively, never letting her voice fall unheard again. He waited in silence until the eunuch brought forth a woman clad in yellow. This humble maiden, Zhang Suxin, pays her respects to Her Majesty the Empress. Zhang Suxin. This was wrong. He looked up in shock, staring at the woman before him, unable to comprehend why she had been replaced. The Empress asked with a smile, "Are you the girl Jingcheng saved all those years ago?" "No, Your Highness." The woman shook her head in alarm. "The one you saved was my younger sister. She is ill today and could not come to the palace." She was ill. His heart sank, a wave of disappointment washing over him. If she wasn't coming today, then the arranged marriage would be off. What was he to do? The Empress knew nothing of his thoughts, nor did she care. She had summoned a daughter from the Zhang family solely to force her upon Xiao Jingcheng, ensuring he couldn't form alliances with other ministers. Which daughter it was didn't matter. Thus she smiled. "Jingcheng and your Zhang family truly share a deep karmic bond. By the way, do you play the zither? Prince Yu excels at the Xiao flute?" "Perhaps." "Mother." Xiao Jing pressed his hand to his chest and began coughing violently. "Your son suddenly feels unwell. Might I cough? Might I withdraw first?" His coughing grew fierce, his expression agonized, as if death were imminent. The Empress's words were abruptly cut off. She paused, feigning concern. "Jingcheng, what's wrong? Quickly, summon the imperial physician. It's unnecessary. Your humble son sustained an injury a couple of days ago. With rest, it will be fine." Supported by attendants, he left the banquet in a weakened state. As soon as he entered the carriage, he slowly sat up, his gaze dark and troubled. How could she have fallen ill? He must see her, but he couldn't just show up at her home unannounced. He needed to devise a plan. Because of what happened all those years ago, she had always cherished him. Everything else might change, but this would never shift. He needn't worry too much. Once they met, everything would fall into place naturally. By the time sister returned home, it was already midnight. She stood nearby, removing her hairpins, still shaken. "Su Yi, today nearly scared me to death. I was peacefully eating pork knuckles in the back when suddenly I was summoned before the Empress. She even asked me in front of Prince Yu if I could play the zither. I froze. And then it ended. Prince Yu suddenly fell ill and passed away, so I was sent back. I froze for a long moment, passed away. Why didn't I hear the announcement of his death? Had not that kind of passed away and he returned to his mansion. Oh, I knew it this lifetime. He died so much too soon." Did the Empress Dowager arrange a marriage for him? No. Why do you ask? I shook my head and said nothing more. It seemed this lifetime unfolded vastly differently from the last. True enough. Life is like a chessboard, ever shifting. One move from me, and the entire game changes course. I only hope this move of mine is the right one. After tidying up, my elder sister returned to bed. Suddenly, she noticed the brazier on the floor. What's this? I glanced over. The brazier was extinguished, leaving only a few palm-sized fragments propped against its rim. Oh, that's my mind went blank. What was that? Judging by the fragments, they must have been drawings. Yet for some reason, I couldn't recall what they depicted, nor why they had been burned. After a long moment, I said, just some unimportant things. Since they were burned, they must have been insignificant. Why dwell on them? My body had actually recovered long ago, but since I'd spread the rumor of illness, I naturally had to pretend to convalesce for a few days. 3 days later, guests arrived at my home, forcing me to go to the front hall. Only upon arriving did I discover the visitor was Gu Zhao. We had once been somewhat acquainted. Back when we studied at the academy, I'd noticed him alone and taciturn, so I'd looked out for him. Later, I heard he was the academy's scourge-bringer of misfortune, despised by all. They said his birth had caused his mother's death, and at 5, he'd pushed his brother into a pond, drowning him. I feared him and distanced myself. Years later, I learned the truth. He hadn't pushed his brother. His brother had fallen in, and in trying to save him, drowned. But by then, I had long been married, and he had left the capital. There was no way to tell him I was sorry. The young man before me was tall and strikingly handsome, though his eyes still held a trace of distant coldness. Seeing my elder sister and me enter, he greeted us politely, but when his gaze fell on me, he paused slightly before quickly averting his eyes. Father stroked his beard and laughed heartily. Truly, heroes emerge in youth. Ah Zhao, if your father knew how accomplished you've become, he'd be overjoyed even in the afterlife. Gu Zhao lowered his eyes and smiled faintly. I must thank you, uncle, for your care. It's your own doing. Go meet your aunt now. She's in the back courtyard and says she wants to give you a jar of fine wine. Then your nephew will take his leave. He bowed his head, stepped outside, and walked toward the rear courtyard. My elder sister watched him disappear into the distance before asking father curiously, Father, is he truly deaf in one ear? He seemed to hear perfectly well just now. I was taken aback. He's deaf in one ear? Yes, I heard it mentioned at the palace banquet. My sister explained. Years ago, he fell into the water during winter. After he came up, his ear went deaf. I hadn't known about this incident and was momentarily at a loss for words. After nearly drowning at age 5, he'd become intensely afraid of water, never venturing near it. How could he have fallen in again years later? A while later, I left the front hall, preparing to return to my room. I happened upon Gu Zhao emerging from my mother's chambers. Our paths crossed in the narrow corridor. He paused, silently stepping aside without a word. Back then, I truly believed he had caused his brother's death and dared not speak to him again. He couldn't understand my silence. Gathering his courage, he pressed me for answers, but I only pushed him away in terror. He left, lost and distraught, braving the rain. From that day on, he never grew close to anyone again. Whenever we met again, it was always like today's silent avoidance. Watching him, my heart ached. I'm sorry, Gu Zhao. It was my youthful ignorance that hurt you. After a moment's hesitation, I stepped before him. Gu Zhao, are you leaving already? He seemed slightly startled, lifting his gaze. His lashes fluttered before he quickly composed himself. No more words followed. Father mentioned you've left Lingnan now, transferred to the capital. It must have been difficult for you to come back from there. His hand, hidden within his sleeve, tightened slightly. After a long silence, he finally lifted his gaze to meet mine. Missy, what exactly are you trying to say? Those eyes looked fragile, as if already prepared to be hurt again. Only then did I realize how deeply my past coldness had wounded him. Truthfully, I could empathize with him. A dull ache gripped my heart. I drew a shallow breath, fighting back the mist gathering in my eyes. Gu Zhao, I was wrong back then. I'm sorry. I know you didn't push your brother. He drowned trying to save you. Like a thunderclap, he froze in place. Instead of the hurtful words I'd expected, an apology came. Yet he looked terrified, his eyes churning with doubt, as if trying to gauge my sincerity. After a long moment, he nervously averted his gaze, forcing himself to steady his voice. Why bring up the past? I've long forgotten it. Every flicker of his emotion was visible to me. Yes, I had distanced myself from him for so many years. How could he possibly trust me? I didn't press him. I merely smiled. My birthday is in 7 days. I'll be hosting a poetry gathering at home. Will you come? His knuckles shifted restlessly. After a long silence, he replied, I'm not particularly acquainted with Miss Sui. Why invite me? I still have duties at the magistrate's office. I'm afraid I cannot accompany you. With that, he lowered his eyes and walked away quickly. I'll send you an invitation. I called after his retreating figure. Su Yi, wear this outfit today. You look best in it like a ripe peach. My elder sister waved a soft pink gown before me. The vivid color made me flinch inwardly. No, thank you. At my age, I can't wear such delicate hues. What do you mean at your age? My sister's eyes widened as she jabbed me with her finger. Hey, you're only 16. Why are you acting like an old woman? I jolted awake. Right, I was only 16 now, not the gloomy, black-robed princess confined to the palace. At this age, I should be vibrant and radiant. I smiled and took the dress. All right, I'll wear it. Heading to the garden, I still felt a bit nervous. I wasn't used to being 16 again, afraid others might mock me for dressing so flamboyantly. Only when I saw my old friends, each dressed in vibrant reds, greens, and yellows like a riot of spring flowers, did I finally relax. The birthday girls here, several sisters, pulled me over, teasing me endlessly. I laughed and scolded them playfully, glancing around but seeing no sign of Gu Zhao. My heart sank. He probably wouldn't come. I sighed softly, but this became my downfall. My elder sister accused me of being a sore loser and insisted I make amends by painting a picture. Helpless, I rose to paint. To ease my boredom in the inner chambers, I'd always enjoyed painting. Though no master, I had my own style. When funds were tight at the prince's mansion, I'd sold many paintings to support the household. Today, I chose those chattering girls as my subject, painting a scene of 100 butterflies vying for spring. Halfway through, I suddenly heard someone exclaim, Gu Zhao has arrived. Startled, I turned to see Gu Zhao beneath the eaves, clad in plain white robes, radiant as a clear breeze and bright moon. He had finally come. Our eyes met. He gave a slight nod and said softly, Miss Zhang, happy birthday. As he spoke, a servant behind him hurried forward, carrying a brocade box. Smiling, my master's small token of appreciation. Please accept it, miss. I exhaled softly, my heart easing with relief and joy that he had forgiven me. Then I took the box and opened it, discovering he had gifted me a set of precious purple hair brushes. How thoughtful! I smiled faintly, took one brush, and walked to Gu Zhao. Since you brought brushes, why not complete the remaining half of the painting yourself? He hesitated. That might not be appropriate. Why not? We came here to enjoy ourselves today. I tugged his sleeve, guiding him to the table and handing him the brush. After a moment's hesitation, he took it and silently filled in the remaining sections. With the final stroke, he shook his head softly. It's poorly done. I've ruined your painting. How is it poorly done? I think blending the two styles creates a unique charm. I lifted the painting to show the others, then turned to him and whispered, I'm glad you came today. Thank you. His ears flushed suddenly, the gloom in his eyes dispersing, as if illuminated by a ray of light. Happy birthday, he he repeated, this time with a smile in his eyes. During the poetry gathering, Gu Zhao spoke scarcely at all. With one ear impaired, certain words eluded him. Such a remarkable young man had it not been for his hearing impairment. He would have been the envy of all as a peerless gentleman. His current state was truly a pity. I sighed softly to myself. Just as his servant passed by, I stopped him and casually asked, how long have you been with your young master? The servant pondered for a moment. Oh, probably about 10 years now. Then do you know why your master fell into the water all those years ago? I couldn't say. That was 7 years back. It happened on the winter solstice. I was back in my hometown paying respects to my grandfather and wasn't with my master. I only heard about it after I returned. 7 years ago, the winter solstice wasn't that the very day I fell into the water? My heart pounded like a drum, and I hurriedly asked, where did he fall in? The servant scratched his head. I think it was Wying Lake. It really was Wying Lake. So that day at Wying Lake, I wasn't the only one who fell in. But why had I never seen him? I racked my brain, yet found no clue. Then again, there was a beast taming show by the lake that day. The crowd was thick and jostling. Several people falling in on the same day wasn't surprising. I glanced at Gu Zhao nearby and asked no more. By the moon gate, behind the peach blossom tree, a figure flashed past. When I looked over, only a maid was there, frantically wiping sweat from her brow. Did someone just come by? Yes. The maid, still shaken, stammered, His Royal Highness Prince, you came. Xiao Jingcheng had excused himself from the banquet, citing illness. As expected, the crown prince wouldn't let it go. That very night, he brought the imperial physician to the prince's residence to check on him. Fortunately, he had prepared in advance, employing some tactics to distort his pulse. The crown prince could only return empty-handed. After dealing with these troubles, Xiao Jingcheng thought it was time to meet Zhang Suyi. The world changed in the blink of an eye. Having missed the palace banquet, who knew how many twists and turns would unfold? She was now at the age for marriage discussions. If he delayed, someone else might beat him to it. He pondered for a moment, vaguely recalling that her birthday was just a few days away. During their days in the private residence, he had once used her birthday banquet as a pretext to win over the families of ministers. The struggle for the throne back then had been brutal, and she had sacrificed much for him. This time, it would be solely to bring her joy. He thought for a moment, then ordered his subordinates to retrieve a set of precious purple-haired brushes. She excelled in calligraphy and painting, her brushwork being particularly exquisite. That was why, after her death, he had posthumously honored her as the virtuous and literary empress. The literary title specifically referring to this talent. Holding the brocade box, he couldn't help but smile. He recalled how, after her death, palace attendants had sorted through her belongings and discovered a stack of paintings in her dowry chest. They were all. Xiao Jingcheng paused, his mind going blank. What paintings were they? He couldn't recall. He only remembered later placing them in his bedchamber, opening them often to gaze upon them. After much thought, he gave up trying to remember. In any case, her paintings were truly exquisite. She would surely be delighted to receive the brush he sent her. He could almost see her shy, timid smile, and his heart swelled with joy. He longed for her birthday to come sooner. Several days later, Xiao Jingcheng visited the Zhang residence under the pretext of investigating the source of the banquet provisions. The journey consumed him with impatience, wishing he could sprout wings and fly to her side. Minister Zhang was terrified, fearing Xiao Jingcheng suspected his provisions were tainted. He trembled, unable even to lift his head. Why so nervous? I'm merely passing by and have a few questions. Xiao Jingcheng stood up and glanced toward the rear courtyard. Why is your backyard so noisy? Today is my daughter's birthday. A group of children are holding a poetry gathering. What a coincidence! I'll go take a look. The Zhang residence wasn't large. stepping out of the main hall, and through a moon gate led directly to the rear courtyard. Xiao Jingcheng strolled to the moon gate. Lifting his gaze, he saw Jiang Suyi. She was only 16 now, her face as rosy as peach blossoms. Paired with her pink attire, she looked as ethereal as a peach blossom fairy. He had never seen her like this before. In his previous life, the royal household faced hardship. She dared not be too conspicuous. Her garments mostly plain colors, her hair adorned with only 1 or 2 silver hairpins, nothing more. This present attire truly caught Xiao Jingcheng's eye. He remembered her kindness, but not that she was also beautiful. He had even prepared his words. I came today to attend to official business, but happened to hear from Minister Zhang that it is your birthday. I thought I'd join the festivities. Oh, and I hear you're exceptionally skilled at painting. This purple bristle brush is a recent acquisition. It would be a waste for me to keep it, so I'll give it to you. Just as he lifted his foot to enter, he saw her running toward a youth beneath the eaves, her smile radiant as she called out, "Since you brought a brush, why not complete the remaining half of the painting yourself?" The brush she waved in her hand was precisely the purple bristle brush gifted to her by that youth. Xiao Jingcheng's foot, halfway out the door, retracted. How could it be such a coincidence? Someone had beaten him to giving her the same thing. How could he possibly present his gift now? As he pondered, Jiang Suyi had already taken the youth by the hand and led him toward the desk, cheerfully instructing him to paint while laughing and chatting, looking quite intimate. His heart sank, a pang of displeasure rising within him. He didn't believe Jiang Suyi harbored feelings for the youth. She had eyes only for him, of that he was utterly certain. He was merely annoyed that at 16, she still didn't understand the boundaries between men and women. All that pulling and tugging, didn't she fear giving others the wrong impression? He sighed out. Well, today was her birthday. In her moment of joy, she'd acted a bit out of character. It was harmless enough. Once she married him, such carefree days would be hard to come by. But now that the youth had gifted her the purple-haired brush, he couldn't possibly offer one himself. With nothing else to present, he felt awkward about celebrating her birthday. Well, he'd put it off for today. He needed time to devise a better plan. He lingered briefly at the moon gate, watching her a moment longer before turning away. Passing by Wying Lake on his way, an idea suddenly struck him. 7 years ago, she had fallen into the water by accident, and he had saved her. That day, he had dived in merely to put on a show of loving the people like his own children for the emperor, who was visiting incognito. He hadn't even gotten a clear look at her face. But this place must hold extraordinary meaning for her. Why not choose this very spot? His mind made up, he closed his eyes with calm composure, picturing Jiang Suyi's astonished and bashful expression when the moment came. To meet again in this familiar place, truly a delightful prospect. The maid said Prince you had visited, which startled me greatly. But then I heard father say he was here to inspect the banquet food and wine, and my heart settled. I heard he suddenly fell ill at the banquet that day, so inspecting the food and wine made perfect sense. I returned to join the guests in their revelry. Gu Zhao remained quiet throughout the day. When night fell and the banquet ended, I escorted him to the door. Zhao, our families are old acquaintances. We should visit more often. If you have free time in the future, please come to my home for a visit. Having lived an extra lifetime, I instinctively addressed him as Zhao, the informal term for younger relatives. Unexpectedly, that single Zhao made his face flush. He cleared his throat, quickly masking his emotion, and replied with apparent indifference, "MHM." Then he departed with his servant, his steps growing lighter and lighter as he walked away. The servant leaned in with a teasing grin, whispering something. Gu Zhao clenched his jaw, twisted the boy's waist hard enough to make him yelp, then let go. He glanced back at me, grinned, and turned away, striding forward with his back straight and his high ponytail bouncing lightly. I smiled faintly and returned to my quarters. Early the next morning, Mingji suddenly handed me an invitation. It was from Sister Wen, who hadn't been able to attend yesterday's banquet, inviting me to a boat ride on Lake Wuming in 3 days. I had intended to rest for a few days, but my father maintained close ties with the Wen family, making refusal difficult. I had no choice but to accept. 3 days later, I donned a pale pink layered skirt and took Mingxi with me to the rendezvous at Wying Lake. As we stepped down from the carriage, Mingxi pointed to a blooming crabapple tree by the lakeside and exclaimed, "Miss, look at that crabapple tree! How enormous it is, and how splendidly it blooms!" I turned my gaze to the lakeside, where the crabapple blossoms were indeed radiant and unforgettable. Suddenly, I recalled seeing a crabapple tree somewhere before, one even larger and more beautiful than this one. But where exactly had I seen it? I couldn't recall for the life of me. The sound of hooves reached my ears. I turned abruptly to see Gu Zhao riding a white horse, galloping swiftly toward us. "Suyi." He reined in his horse before me and asked, "What are you doing here?" He wore official robes, suggesting he must have been passing by. "I came to meet Sister Wen Yu," I replied. "She invited me for a boat ride, but it seems she's running late." He frowned. "Wen Yu, I just saw her returning to her residence from outside the city. Why would she arrange a boat ride with you here?" "Is that so?" I pondered for a moment. "Perhaps she has other matters to attend to today. She'll come when she's finished." "Perhaps." Gu Zhao glanced around, dismounted, and said, "There are few visitors by the lake today. I can't bear to leave you waiting here alone. Why don't I stay with you? I'll depart once she arrives." His earnest expression made refusal difficult. After a moment's thought, I nodded. "Very well." So he walked beside me to the lakeside, where we stood beneath the flowering quince trees. "The quince blossoms are truly beautiful," I remarked, searching for conversation. Gu Zhao stood a little way from the water, smiling. "Yes," but his eyes were fixed on me. "Why are you looking at me?" I wasn't. He quickly averted his gaze, looking up at the flowers. Moments later, his eyes returned to me. After a hesitant pause, he asked, "Suyi, how did you know my brother drowned saving me?" My breath caught. The day his brother saved him, a servant had witnessed it. But fearing blame, the servant dared not speak up, revealing the truth only over a decade later. By today's timeline, that would be another 6 years. I truly shouldn't know this yet. I avoided his gaze and said, "As a child, I was naive and believed whatever others said. But as I grew older, I reflected carefully. Your character is noble, and you value loyalty above all. You would never do such a thing. Back then, I must have misunderstood you. So that's how it was." He exhaled softly, as if releasing a weight. Words formed on his lips, but vanished unspoken, replaced by a quiet smile. After years of suspicion, someone finally believed him. His joy was palpable. Watching him, I saw none of the loneliness and sensitivity from our first meeting that my heart stirred. The spring breeze stirred the lake, sending ripples across its surface. Gu Zhao, who feared water, couldn't help but take a half step back. I noticed and asked him, "Zhao, I heard that you also fell into the water 7 years ago." He paused slightly, his expression shifting to unease. "Yes, I recall that after your childhood incident, you became terrified of water and never approached the lake. Why did you fall in again 7 years ago? Your servants said it happened on the winter solstice. I was by the lake that day. Why didn't I see you?" It's been too long. I don't remember." He turned his face away, his fingers fidgeting nervously. How could he not remember something like that? I thought he simply didn't want to talk about it. Since that was the case, I shouldn't press further. "All right." I sighed softly, turning my gaze toward the distance. Where was Sister Wen? Why hadn't she come yet? Gu Zhao turned back, staring at me for a long moment. After hesitating, he clenched his fist and called out, "Suyi." "What is it?" I turned back to him. He took a deep breath, pressed his lips together, and said, "Actually, back then I came to find you." Huh, I felt a bit dazed. What? I didn't quite understand. Having found the courage to speak, Gu Zhao no longer held back, pouring out his thoughts in one breath. "That day, I came to Wying Lake solely to see you. I was about to leave the capital with my father, and once gone, I didn't know if I'd ever return. So I wanted to see you one last time. Knowing you'd come to watch the animal training, I slipped away from my family and came alone. But you were afraid of me then, so I dared not approach. I could only watch from afar. Soon after, I saw you being pushed into the water. I jumped in to save you, but alas, Prince Yu was closer and pulled you out before I could reach you." He finished with a bitter smile that my heart pounded like a drum. So that day, he had fallen into the water to save me, but he feared water. Why? I looked at his earlobes, flushed crimson as if they might bleed, and suddenly understood. What else could it be besides love? What else could it be? But after what I did to you back then, why did you? I never blamed you. Back then, everyone feared me. Your distancing yourself was only human. I never held it against you." He gazed at me, a smile playing at his lips, his eyes sparkling like stars. "So now that you've chosen to accept me, I'm truly happy." It felt like I'd been struck by a blunt object, leaving me reeling for a long time. He feared water, yet he dove in during winter to save me, even losing the hearing in one ear because of it. But Gu Zhao, what in me could possibly be worthy of your affection? Lost in thought, the sound of galloping hooves suddenly echoed behind me. "Your Highness, wait for me." I spun around to see Xiao Jingcheng. How could I encounter him here? When I died, he was already 30, with silver streaks at his temples, his youth long gone. Seeing him so young now felt utterly jarring. Meeting him again after a lifetime felt surreal. I momentarily forgot to step aside. By the time I remembered, he was already riding his horse toward me. "The lakeside scenery is splendid today." This young lady looks familiar. Might I have? His words trailed off as he suddenly spotted Gu Zhao on the other side. For some reason, his expression stiffened. The horse shifted restlessly. Gripping the reins, he glanced between me and Gu Zhao, momentarily forgetting what he'd been about to say. Since we couldn't avoid him, Gu Zhao and I bowed in greeting. "We pay our respects to His Royal Highness, Prince Yu." Xiao Jingcheng paused, then dismounted. "Rise." I stood, head bowed, unable to meet his gaze. He looked at Gu Zhao with a complex expression, but quickly decided to ignore him. Pointing at me, he said, "You look familiar. Are you from Magistrate Jiang's household?" He recognized me likely from that birthday celebration when he passed our courtyard, and caught sight of me from afar. Holding my breath, I kept my eyes lowered and replied respectfully, "Indeed." "Ha, what a coincidence." He laughed heartily. Seeing my lack of reaction, he added, "I even saved your life when you were a child." Strange. Why bring this up now? In my past life, after marrying him, I asked if he remembered saving someone. He clearly said he didn't. So he does remember. Back then, he simply didn't want to acknowledge me. I forced a smile. "Yes, Your Highness's kindness is beyond my ability to repay." This left him speechless. He clutched his whip and gave a nervous chuckle. Just then, a small boat drifted across the lake. An old man approached, singing a song. Spotting us, he exclaimed cheerfully, "I've just brewed some tea, and now I've met kindred spirits. Would you guests on shore care to join me for a boat ride and share this fresh brew?" For some reason, I felt this old man's arrival was odd. I instinctively declined. "No, thank you, excellent." Xiao Jingcheng beat me to the answer, then turned to me. "We share a profound connection, Your Highness. Meeting today and sharing this boat ride across the lake is truly a beautiful thing." With that, he stepped onto the boat, his gaze fixed intently on me, leaving me no choice but to follow. I truly didn't want to share a boat with him, but as the daughter of a minor official who owed him a favor, refusing outright would be unreasonable. After much hesitation, I steeled myself and walked over. I figured he was just acting on a whim today no matter what he said. I'd just play dumb and stay silent. Just as I was about to board, Gu Zhao jumped onto the boat before me. "What a coincidence we three are meeting like this," he said with a broad grin, reaching out to pull me aboard. Xiao Jingcheng's face darkened, and the old man seemed uneasy too. "This boat can only hold 3 at most. Too many people will make it sink." Gu Zhao ignored him, plopping down and spreading his hands. "It hasn't sunk yet." The air hung with deathly silence. I shot Gu Zhao a grateful glance, thank goodness for him, saving me from utter awkwardness. The old man gave a nervous chuckle and silently began rowing. In the boat's center, a kettle of tea simmered, its fragrance wafting through the air. Xiao Jingcheng said nothing, sitting down across from me. Gu Zhao feared water. Once the boat started moving, his face paled, and he kept closing his eyes to steady his breathing. Facing Xiao Jingcheng made me even more uncomfortable. I kept my eyes downcast, daring not to make a sound. After a long while, Xiao Jingcheng broke the silence first. "Am I so terrifying? Why does no one dare to look at me?" I hesitated for a moment before replying. "Your servant has an eye ailment and cannot lift her gaze." Gu Zhao nodded. "I can vouch for that." Xiao Jingcheng's face darkened further. He held back, then fixed his gaze on me. His tone deliberately softened. "You must be 16 now, right?" "Yes." "How time flies. When I saved you, you were just a little girl with a head of yellow hair." I didn't understand why he kept emphasizing this point. I gave an awkward smile and nodded. "Your Highness is truly kind-hearted. I am deeply grateful." He choked on his words again, finally dropping the subject. He shot Gu Zhao a displeased glance and asked me, "Did you two arrange to meet here today?" Gu Zhao quickly replied, "No, Your Highness. I was merely passing by when I happened to see Suyi waiting for a friend. Concerned for her safety alone here, I offered to accompany her." Suyi, quite the affectionate nickname. "Are your relations unusual?" Gu Zhao looked up, eyes wide with feigned innocence. What did Your Highness say? My hearing is poor in one ear, I couldn't make it out." Xiao Jingcheng's face darkened like charcoal. He rubbed his forehead. "If you can't hear, then shut up." Gu Zhao shut her mouth, truly falling silent. The atmosphere felt off, making my heart race. I lowered my head deeper and deeper, wishing I could become invisible. Xiao Jingcheng, however, refused to let it go, racking his brain for words. I responded only with and yes, like a statue of mud. Eyes fixed on my nose fixed on my heart. I spoke sparingly, refusing to engage further. "I hear you're quite skilled at painting. When might you paint something for me?" "Your Highness must be mistaken. My skills are crude and unworthy of your eyes." Plain a white robe, he seemed on the verge of anger. Unnoticed, the boat had reached the lake's center. Just as he was about to speak, a sudden splash erupted beneath their feet. All heads dropped in unison. The boat was sinking. The old man clutched his head and wailed, "I told you it would sink." "What do we do now?" Xiao Jingcheng sprang to his feet. But the sudden movement only made the boat capsize faster. With a series of splashes, all 4 of us plunged into the water. Amidst the splashing, I saw Xiao Jingcheng desperately swimming toward me. "Suyi, stay still." But I couldn't stay still. Gu Zhao was afraid of water. Kicking my legs in the water, I turned my head and saw Gu Zhao choking on water. Hesitating only a moment, I swam toward him. Ever since falling into Wying Lake 7 years ago, Mother had hired a fisherwoman to teach me and my elder sister to swim. I was no longer a landlubber. Once I pulled Gu Zhao to safety, he calmed considerably, overcoming his fear to swim ashore with me. Xiao Jingcheng was hauled out by the old man. "Suyi, I'm fine. Gu Zhao's voice trembled, yet he still tried to reassure me. His health was fragile, that's how he lost his hearing in one ear years ago. Fearful of another accident, I disregarded everything else and signaled Mingji to help us lift him onto the shore. After taking a few steps, I paused and glanced back at Xiao Jingcheng. Soaked to the bone, he pushed the old man away, bent over to cough up water, then looked up at me. I froze for a moment, bowed my head slightly in farewell, and hurried away with Gu Zhao. Fortunately, Gu Zhao was merely shaken. After walking for a while, he recovered quickly. He pushed me into the carriage. Suyi, hurry home, warm yourself by the fire. Don't catch a chill. But what about you? I'll go see the prince first, then ride back. It's been bitterly cold these past few days. Riding back in this, that's just adding insult to injury. Get in the carriage. I'll send you home. Impossible. Riding together would invite gossip. My reputation is already ruined. I care not what others say of me, but I cannot drag you down with me. But go home now. He signaled the coachman to drive on, smiling at me. I spent years training in Lingnan. My body is as strong as ever. You needn't worry. The carriage began to move, his figure growing smaller and smaller. I clung to the window frame, my eyes stinging. He clearly cared for me, yet never took advantage. Instead, he constantly considered my well-being a true gentleman through and through. But in my past life, I misunderstood him for so many years. I never apologized before I died. How deeply I regret it. I bowed my head, hot tears rolling down my cheeks. Riverbank. Xiao Jingcheng stood soaked in the shallow water until Zhang Sui's figure vanished from sight. Several subordinates hurried over, wrapping him in a quilt and helping him ashore. He pushed them away and walked silently toward his horse, tethered beside a crabapple tree. Gu Zhao arrived and asked if he was unharmed. Ignoring him, Xiao Jingcheng spurred his horse away. To meet Zhang Sui, he had invited her aboard a pleasure boat under the name of a Wen family maiden. Delayed by official duties, he feared she might wait too long and raced toward Wying Lake. When he finally arrived, he discovered Gu Zhao was there too. After the boat capsized, she had abandoned him and rushed recklessly to save Gu Zhao. How could this be? He was only slightly late. How had she already fallen under Gu Zhao's spell? Angry, yet unsure whom to direct his fury at, he returned to the prince's mansion in a gloomy mood. He changed into clean clothes and sat in his study for a while. Perhaps from the chill, he felt a headache coming on. That night, an aide suddenly reported that the crown prince's faction had made new moves, led none other than Meng Qi. That Meng Qi clearly, his previous warning hadn't taught him a lesson. His face cold, he summoned his subordinate. Go to the south of the city. Bring back Meng Qi's concubine. Lord Meng has a concubine? Just go and arrest her. He's hiding her in. Xiao Jingcheng paused abruptly. He had suddenly forgotten where Meng Qi hid that mistress. Yet in his previous life, he had seen her, even used her to imprison Meng Qi. Now he couldn't recall where she'd been placed. Frowning, he remembered Zhang Sui's paintings. He kept them close, viewing them nearly every day. Now he'd forgotten what they depicted. How could this be? His heightened sensitivity quickly alerted him to the passive forgetting occurring within him. Events from his past life, ones that had yet to unfold in this existence, or would never happen at all, were quietly fading from his mind. Your Highness, his subordinate asked, puzzled. Xiao Jingcheng snapped back to reality, frowning. Follow Meng Qi. That man is hidden in the southern part of the city. Find him at all costs. After the subordinate left, he hurriedly sat down and took out his brush and ink. He would write down everything he still remembered, all about the crown prince's faction, about the empress, about every minister, everything. As he wrote, he remembered Zhang Sui. Would he forget her too? He had intended to take his time, but now, outside the window, the cold wind howled fiercely, shaking the tree shadows. Xiao Jingcheng clenched his fist, snapping the brush in his hand. He couldn't delay any longer. He had to marry her before he forgot her. After returning from the riverbank, though I changed clothes promptly and stayed by the fire all day, I still caught a chill. I've been listless, sniffling, and without appetite. Gu Zhao also caught a chill, but upon hearing I was too miserable to eat, she began buying fresh delicacies daily from outside and having them delivered to me. Today's delivery was spicy crab from Tianfu Tower. Though my appetite remained absent, seeing those crabs made me feel a little better. After 10 years in the prince's mansion, I'd long grown accustomed to neglect and indifference, no longer expecting anything from others. Yet now, as someone offered me piece by piece of their heart, I realized that deep within me still lived a little girl who needed to be cherished. Lying on my side on the bed, I smiled softly. Suddenly, my elder sister rushed in, whispering, "Sweetie, Prince has come to our house." I sat up abruptly. What? What? You say he fell for me at first sight and wants to ask father for my hand? How could that be possible? My mind was a tangled mess. I hurriedly slipped on my shoes, determined to rush to the front hall and stop him. But I found Xiao Jingcheng already standing outside my door. "Miss Sushin, would you mind stepping aside for a moment?" He stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes deep and inscrutable. "All right." My elder sister swallowed hard, lowered her head, and slipped away. After she left, Xiao Jingcheng lifted his gaze to me and smiled faintly. "Suyi, has your illness improved?" I stood there for a moment without responding, then curtsied. "Your Highness, matters of marriage should not be rushed. I implore you to reconsider." I have pondered this matter 1,000 times over. His smile remained faint. "From the moment we met by the lake, I knew you were the one destined for me. What is it? Are you unwilling to marry me?" "Of course I am unwilling." I paused, striving for utmost respect. "Your Highness, you know nothing of me, nor I of you. How can we bind our lives together based on a single fleeting encounter?" His smile faded, his expression shifting unpredictably. After a long silence, he growled, "Is it because of Gu Zhao?" "Yes and no, Your Highness. We are simply not suited for each other." He clenched his teeth, rage boiling within him. "But you were meant to be my consort." "What do you mean, meant to be?" Something flashed through my mind. I suddenly lifted my gaze, staring at him in disbelief. Recalling recent events, I belatedly grasped something. He was a man consumed solely by imperial power. How could he possibly crave a woman after just one meeting? This wasn't him unless he, too, had been reborn. My head spun. I stumbled back half a step, leaning against the door to steady myself. He hurried forward. "Suyi." I raised my hand to stop him. Lifting my gaze, I looked deeply into his eyes. "Your Highness, yesterday cannot be held onto. Our connection has run its course." He stiffened, his eyes suddenly widening as he stared straight at me. The air grew deathly quiet. In that shared gaze, neither of us spoke a word, yet we understood everything. After a long moment, his voice cracked as he asked, "Suyi, so you've been deliberately avoiding me?" "Your Highness knows the truth. Why press me further? Why?" After a brief silence, I replied calmly, "Because I no longer wish to endure such lonely, stifling days. Because I want to marry someone who truly understands me, who puts me first in everything, who genuinely loves me, not all out of guilt." I don't only feel guilt toward you. Is that so? Then do you know what color I like? What fruit I love to eat? Can you promise you'll never forget me again? Never abandon me?" He fell silent. He couldn't answer. Of course he couldn't. Over the past decade, so many things took precedence over me. I was constantly sacrificed, forgotten, taken for granted, and cast aside. He knew this all too well. After a long silence, he lowered his brows. "Suyi, I failed you before. From now on, I'll get to know you slowly. I'll put you first." I cut him off. "You won't change. I knew him better than I knew myself. He pressed his lips together. Give me 1 month. I'll prove to you that if I can be a good emperor, I can certainly be a good husband. Without waiting for my reply, he turned and strode away. I took 2 steps after him. Even then, I won't marry you. I won't marry you. Do you hear me? I won't marry you. Somehow, news of Xiao Jingcheng coming to my home to propose had spread. The common folk all said, I must have struck gold to win the favor of the prince of you. Only I remained gloomy day after day. Upon hearing this, Gu Zhao came to visit that very day. They say Prince Yu came to ask for your hand. Is it true? My brows furrowed slightly. Without lifting my head, I murmured softly, Mm. He fell silent for a long moment, his voice low and heavy. Congratulations. I know since he saved you that year, you felt. His eyes dropped, unable to continue. I wanted to say I didn't want to marry him, but I opened my mouth only to swallow the words back down. I understood Gu Zhao's feelings for me. To voice them would be to give him hope. He was a subject, while Xiao Jingcheng was the prince. Xiao Jingcheng was determined to marry me. What could Gu Zhao possibly do? He would only be left with disappointment, and perhaps even face Xiao Jingcheng's retaliation. I clenched the handkerchief in my fist, pressed my lips tightly together, and ultimately remained silent. Gu Zhao also fell quiet for a long while. As dusk fell, he forced a smile and bid me farewell. Su Yi, congratulations. He turned and walked away quickly. His retreating figure looked utterly desolate. Gu Zhao never appeared again. 2 days later, I learned he had petitioned the court for permission to voluntarily leave the capital and guard the Yumen Pass. In my previous life, he had also gone to Yumen. I gazed outside the mansion, and inexplicably, my eyes grew hot. In the end, he had returned to his destined path. Xiao Jingcheng had given himself a month to prove his sincerity to me. The very next day, he sent servants bearing several chests of rare treasures. Not knowing my preferences, he sent every precious item imaginable. Surely I'd find something to my liking among them. Rumors spread throughout the capital that the Prince of Yu, cautious for decades, had lost his reason over the daughter of a lowly official. But I knew better. He hadn't lost his mind at all. He was merely seizing this opportunity to lull the crown prince's faction into complacency. A day later, he reserved the entire Guangfu pavilion and invited me to a banquet. I refused to go. So he pressured my father, frightening him so badly he couldn't sleep all night. Left with no choice, I had to attend. Inside Guangfu Tower, aside from a few cooks, only he and I were present. He had anticipated my arrival. Smiling calmly, several chefs from beyond the frontier have joined Guangfu Tower. The dishes are fresh and innovative. I'm certain you'll enjoy them. I didn't respond, merely retorting coldly, this is coercion. He crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow with a smile. Yet here you are, shameful. I could only curse him silently. He gestured for me to sit, and I reluctantly took a seat. He picked up a crab roe pastry for me and murmured softly, don't be angry. I'll apologize to my father-in-law later. Try a bite, HM. This gentle, tender side of him was something I'd never seen before. A flicker of pity stirred in my heart, but I quickly turned my face away and fell silent. Ignoring me again, thinking about Gu Zhao, I snapped my head around. Don't drag others into this. He scoffed, then grinned triumphantly. It doesn't matter. He's leaving the capital soon anyway. Good for him for knowing better. Competing with me would only end badly. Watching his confident expression, I sighed. So in the end, was fate determined to push us together? Xiao Jingcheng sent me gifts, daily exotic treasures, or delicacies. The spectacle was so grand the whole city knew. He said he wanted the world to see I was worth it. He'd never shown such devotion to anyone before, and I wasn't heartless. As days passed, I couldn't help but feel touched. On the day of the spring equinox, lanterns hung everywhere in the city, and young couples strolled the streets in pairs. Xiao Jingcheng invited me to view the lanterns at the drum tower. After I arrived, I waited a while before he finally showed up, late. He hurried over, carrying a small dog-shaped lantern, and sighed with relief. Suyi, I thought you wouldn't wait for me. I shrugged. It's fine. I'm used to it. Guilt flashed in his eyes as he pressed the lantern into my hands. Today's an exception. Trust me. It won't happen again. His tone was soft and sincere, making it hard to hold a grudge, especially since I hadn't waited long. Nice lantern, I said, taking it and holding it up to examine. Seeing I wasn't angry, Xiao Jingcheng finally relaxed. He leaned against the railing beside me as we watched the bustling street below. Just then, a couple passed by. The man held fireworks in his hand, making silly faces to make his wife laugh. I watched, completely absorbed. Xiao Jingcheng snorted coldly. Only he gets fireworks? He clapped his hands, and soon the palace guards brought over several boxes. He grabbed a handful, lit them, and waved them in front of me, cheerfully calling out, Suyi, look, these fireworks are red. He smiled, his gaze pure and intense, looking just like an ordinary young master without grand ambitions. Uncompetitive, focused only on making his beloved girl happy. For a fleeting moment, I thought, if only he could stay this way forever. Mesmerized by the fireworks, I couldn't help but smile. It felt like ages since I'd been this happy. Doubts began to creep in. Perhaps Xiao Jingcheng really had changed. Until that cold arrow suddenly shot toward us. Chaos erupted instantly. People screamed and fled in panic. Xiao Jingcheng dodged just in time, escaping injury. The moment he saw the mark on the arrow's tail, his brow furrowed. After a moment's struggle, he gritted his teeth. Suyi, hide, don't run around. Then, without a backward glance, he charged down the stairs. I stared at his disappearing figure at the stairwell entrance, frozen for a moment, then suddenly felt at peace. No one could have imagined the fire would spread so quickly. The drum tower was already hung with lanterns. In the chaos, several lanterns shattered, igniting the tower. I rushed toward the staircase entrance, but was forced back by the flames. Thick smoke choked my breath. Covering my mouth and nose, I scrambled upward, desperately searching for an escape route. But the drum tower burned with terrifying speed. With nowhere left to hide, I curled into a corner, choking on the smoke. I thought, this is probably the end. Sister, father, mother, I'll miss you all so much. I lay on the floor, my will to survive fading. Sweet. Gu Zhao's voice rang in my ears. I opened my eyes. This must be a dream, right? He should have left the capital already. Why would he come to save me? But the voice grew clearer. Suyi, where are you? It was him, truly him. Gathering every ounce of strength, I screamed, I'm here. Through the thick smoke, Gu Zhao, wrapped in a wet quilt, rushed toward me. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Didn't you leave? Why did you come find me? He paused. I should have left, but suddenly, I wanted to see you one last time. I couldn't help but laugh. Gu Zhao, oh Gu Zhao, what can I possibly say? We have to go. He pulled me up and ran toward the exit, the highest point of the drum tower. Do you trust me? He asked. I nodded. He smiled faintly, wrapped his arms around me, and leaped. Goodbye, Xiao Jingcheng. It was already the next day. He must have worked through the night. His eyes were hollow and bloodshot. Suyi, his eyes reddened as he looked at my freshly bandaged legs, at me, who had nearly died. He couldn't find the words. He knew he had no right to say anything more. I smiled weakly. I held no resentment or hatred toward him. I had truly let it all go. It's okay, Jingcheng. This was the first time I'd ever called him that. It's okay. At least this past month, I was truly happy. It felt like a dream, something I never dared hope for before. Thank you for giving me that dream. Suyi, don't say that. His eyes reddened, tears falling as he choked on his words. Xiao Jingcheng, seeing you cry for me once was worth it. I smiled gently. Jingcheng, I'll tell you a secret. Actually, I didn't leave you until 10 years after my death. I saw everything you did for me. I saw everything you did for the world. You were a wise ruler and a mighty sovereign. Under your Li dynasty, the people lived in peace and prosperity. Foreign tribes dared not invade. Those years were times of great harmony. Every day a good day. A man like you was never meant to be held back by personal attachments. I couldn't be so selfish as to ask you to change for me. I wanted you to sit upon the throne and be worthy of the world. We have already lived one lifetime together. You have compensated me for every regret. You owe me nothing more. From now on, go where you must. He struggled to hold back, yet tears still rolled down unceasingly. After a long while, he knew it was time to end this. He stopped crying, closed his eyes to compose himself. Then he gave me a smile, turned resolutely, and walked away. After Gu Zhao and I jumped from the drum tower, we were both gravely injured. We each lay bedridden for months. Gu Zhao recovered before me. Once he could walk again, he visited my home daily. The following spring, when I finally walked normally, Gu Zhao took me out on horseback to enjoy the season. I forgot to mention by then, we were already betrothed. Turning a street corner, we passed the Prince Yu's residence. I saw a branch of crabbable blossoms reaching over the wall. I gasped, the Prince of Yu's residence has such a magnificent crabbable tree. Gazing at the mansion, my heart skipped a beat. It felt strange, as though I had lived there for many years. But I had never even entered the Prince of Yu's residence. Besides, I was only 17 now. How could I have lived there for years? What is it? Gu Zhao followed my gaze. I shook my head and nothing. How peculiar. Never mind. I wrapped my arms sweetly around Gu Zhao's waist. After this month, we'll be married. Many years later, Xiao Jingcheng became emperor. In his arms lay a small book, filled with notes that would prove invaluable later. Yet he couldn't recall why he'd written them at all. The final page bore 2 words, marry her. Her must have referred to Zhang Suyi. Strange as it seemed, the moment they met by the riverbank, he'd inexplicably resolved to seek her hand in marriage. A grand, public declaration that shook the entire city. Looking back now, it seemed utterly absurd. He held the notebook, shaking his head with a faint smile. Yet the next moment, a wave of inexplicable regret washed over him. He sat there, head bowed, staring blankly at those 2 words for a very long time. Years later, Gu Zhao returned to the capital from Yumen to report on his duties, bringing his wife and daughter with him. At the palace banquet, Zhang Suyi led her daughter to pay their respects. Xiao Jingcheng had long forgotten all matters of his past life, yet his gaze still couldn't tear itself away from her. He didn't know why, but inexplicably, he found her good in every way. He watched her speak, watched her coax her child, watched her sit at the banquet table lost in thought, and his lips curved upward without reason. Only when Gu Zhao took his seat, blocking her from view, only then did he withdraw his gaze, staring at the lonely reflection in his wine cup, silent and desolate. After a while, an attendant leaned close and whispered something in his ear. He frowned, then turned and walked toward the Hall of Diligent Governance. As he walked, his mood suddenly lifted. He looked at the majestic palace buildings ahead, straightened his back. This was the path he should walk. At the banquet, the daughter pointed at the moon and smiled at Zhang Suyi. Mother, look, the moon is so perfectly round. Zhang Suyi lifted her head, gazed at the moon, and curved her lips. Yes, it couldn't be any more perfect when